All right, guys. Can we start the session? Am I audible to all of you? Can you just confirm me whether the voice is loud and clear? Yeah, okay. All right, guys. So we will start with Parson. I hope you have gone through Weber's critical analysis. So in this session, we'll be directly starting with Parsons. Okay. See, we have done with Marx, we have done with Durkheim, and then we have done with Weber. I don't think that you will face any problem in any of these thinkers, right? Whether it comes to the theories or analysis or the understanding part of these thinkers, you should not be facing any problem. That's the way we have discussed, and that's the way we have done these theories. We have seen how the theories are so easy, right? It looks difficult when it comes to the theories, but it has been actually very easy. But that may not be the case when it comes to Parson. Here is where you're actually going to taste the flavor of that somewhat difficulty level, but we will try to make it very simple. Even I don't consider it as difficult. People say Parson is difficult. That's the only reason why I have just mentioned that in the beginning. Some consider Parson as difficult, but in my opinion, guys, if you're going to get a question on Parson, you have to jump onto it. Okay, so if you're, I'll make sure that the concepts are clear when it comes to Parson. We hardly have few topics, like we have to see social action first. So we have already done with social action, where we discussed in Weber. So we discussed social action of Weber, and then we are going to discuss social action here also. Parson. So we discussed about some ideal types of social action in Weber. So here also we will be discussing some ideal types of social action by Parson. There we have discussed around 4 ideal types. Here we will be discussing around 3 ideal types. And there we have discussed about some definition and condition. Here also we'll be discussing some definition and condition. Okay. So the question that they're going to ask you is, I don't think that they will simply ask you what is Parsons theory, or even there is no need to ask Weber's theory of social action also, when there is a possibility that they can twist and they can ask a comparison between these two. What they can generally ask you, if you think logically, if you are an examiner, what they can ask you, why they need to ask you Weber, why things are making very simple? No need, right? Because it is going to be very simple. Similarly, if they're asking you about Parson, it is again going to be very simple. What they can do is they can prepare a question in such a way that your knowledge in both can be tested. Like they will ask you, what is Parsons' theory of social action and how he have improved over Weber. So what you need to do here is, this is a modified version of Weber's theory. So you will be talking about this theory. That's, guys, we are going to discuss that. So don't worry about that. It's pretty simple only than Weber. Okay, so we will discuss about that theory of social action. And then we will see how he have improved over Weber in the definition and in the ideal types. That's what mostly people will focus. But what I want you to focus is on a different level and different thing that we will show, and I'll demonstrate also with the diagram. But I hope you know something about Parson already with the previous discussions that we have done, right? Parson have integrated micro macro. So micro from Weber. So when even in all his approach, you can see that when he talk about social action, he use a micro approach borrowing from Weber, but at the same time, he favor the exclusivism which has been proposed by Weber. What is that? Macro approach. So in Parsons' approach, even in social action, you will see a mix of Durkheim and Weber. So in fact, that's how he improved over Weber. So in Parsons' theory of social action, it's not only the meanings of the actor or the motivation of the actor which is considered. It is not only the micro aspect which is going to be considered, the macro realities will also be considered. So that's how he going to improve over Weber. That's exactly what I want to focus more on. And every question, if you see, whenever we are going to make a comparison, I take a thread. I hope you might have noticed that. And we will be developing the answer on that thread only. There will be many differences. Here also, I can make difference within the definition. Weber and Parson defining it in an entirely different way. Conditions are given in a different way. And the ideal types are given 4 there and 3 here. You'll be seeing everything. Guys, these are what mainly people will focus when they mug up the answer. But if you understand and learn, I will not be focusing on these things. These are things that the kids will focus on. Okay, but this, what we need is the thread. We will pick the thread. What Weber missed. Weber missed that macro aspect. That's exactly what you have seen in critical analysis, right? Yesterday. So when he's missing something and Parson is incorporating that aspect in his theory of social action, that's what we need to focus on. Remember when we discussed about division of labor comparison between Marx and Durkheim, there we focused on explaining that integration aspect and alienation aspect. So Marx is talking about alienation, Durkheim was talking about autonomy, creativity is given because of division of labor. Similarly, Marx is talking about disintegrating influence or the antagonist cooperation or the conflict aspect, but Durkheim was talking about integrational aspect in terms of organic solidarity. So that's the thread that we have picked up there. Apart from that, division of labor comparison, we can make a lot of differences, the way the perspectives used and the methods used, and everywhere we can make comparison, but we always take the thread. That's the main point. That's how you need to answer the question. Similarly, comparison between Marx and Weber in the framework of religion. What the thread that we have taken? Religion created capitalism for Weber. Capitalism created religion for Marx, right? Religion is part of superstructure, which was shaped by the economic infrastructure for the function of helping the economic infrastructure. So that's the thread. So once we have developed the thread, and we will develop our answer on that. Exactly the same way, here also, what is the thread that I'm going to pick up? I'll be taking this, that Weber have discussed only one dimension, that is micro, but Parson is going to incorporate the other dimension, that is the exclusivism favored by Weber, that is macro. Okay, so that means Durkheim and Weber both will be coming here. That's the approach of Parson. So that is one of the question that they can ask you, social action and how he improved over Weber. Guys, I'm not expecting a very simple question of what is social action according to Parson. No, there is no need for them to ask that. Logically thinking, if you are the examiner, you will not be asking that, right? Similarly, Weber's theory of social action, I don't think there is any possibility that they will ask you like that, just like that. Okay, so this is a better question that they can frame so that both will be tested here. Then there is one more important topic, that is pattern variables. That can be a 10 marker that we will be discussing tomorrow. And then there is a very famous and most important and most difficult theory, supposed to be the difficult theory, but we'll make it simple. People say it is difficult, that is social system. And many will just mug it up, will try to understand the theory. And within that social system itself, there can be some 10 markers like moving equilibrium, and then AGIL model. And there is something called a cybernetic hierarchy of control. Guys, these terms look slightly difficult, but when it comes to once you jump onto it, things are going to be very simple. Okay, so why I'm giving you this much introduction in Parson is because you might have heard something about Parson that people say, even people are saying that the toppers used to say they just mug it up Parson. Other thinkers, they're comfortable, but Parson, they try to ignore it or they try to mug it up. But in my opinion, if you're getting a question on Parson, if your concepts are clear, and don't worry guys, your concepts will be very clear. Okay, and in fact, we are strong in thinkers. That's our strong area. And I'm expecting once we're done with the sessions, you'll be strong in thinkers as well. So if you get a question on Parson, you must jump onto it. These are the questions that they can ask you: social action, pattern variables, then social system, action system, cybernetic hierarchy of control, moving equilibrium phase, AGIL model. Hardly 6-7 questions. Once you understood things are going to be very simple. And it will be highly rewarding if you are attempting these questions. Okay, unlike any other thinkers and unlike any other topic, if you're attempting question from Parson, because mostly people will try to restrain or refrain from these questions. So we should go on to it. Okay, so I'll start with Parson. Can you guys tell me what all things you know about Parson? We know that he combined these approaches, the combination of approaches, macro, micro, and all those things, right? That means he favored or he incorporated the exclusivism favored by others. Okay, like micro, macro. Positivist, they have excluded something. What is that? That meanings and emotions, the internal aspect they have excluded. So Parson included that. When it comes to non-positivists, they have excluded the external reality, the influence of society. Parson included that. Okay, so this is what we are looking for. That's the approach of Parson. And he's famous for very famous those grand theories. He's making grand theories. There are criticisms that we can see later. Okay, and he mainly deal with abstractions. Okay, grand theories. So that's why it looks slightly difficult. When it comes to social action, let's start discussing about the first theory or the concept which Parson have discussed. It is nothing but social action. So here he want to improve our Weber. In fact, he have done with all the research that has been done by Weber, and even he visited his Weber's wife also to get more details about his study. And then he have come up with this approach. So for Parsons, just 1 minute, guys. Just 1 minute, guys. Okay, so now let's make it in a comparison level. Things will be very easy if you make it in a comparison level. So what Weber discussed, guys? For Weber, any act is social, but there are two conditions. It should be having some meanings, okay, and it should be oriented towards others. So these are the two conditions. There should be meaning and there should be some kind of orientation, and we have discussed this in detail. So this was the definition which was given by Weber. Now, when it comes to Parsons, the definition is slightly going to be different, not difficult, or maybe more in terms of some conditions. Parsons is giving more conditions. For Parsons, any act consciously performed a social action. Any act consciously performed a social action. Okay, so I'm doing an action now. It is consciously performed, right? So is it social action? Yes, it is social action, but there should be some conditions. Now let's look into the conditions. These conditions is what make it special. So any act consciously performed a social action, but the condition is it should be in a social situation. So this is very important. Now tell me, guys, are we in a social situation? Yes, we are, even though we have created a separate situation like this. The social situation, because different people are sitting here, we are following the norms and values, and it's like a normal class only. It's like a society only, right? So it's a social situation. Pretty much that first condition is satisfied. And then next important thing is, for any act to be social, there should be some motivation from the side of the actor. Now, are we having that? Yes, obviously. When I teach this, I have the motivation, and when you're attending the session, you have the motivation. So when he is discussing about this motivation, what is that motivation? This is that internal aspect. So in the condition also, he's talking about that internal aspect. When he discusses about the social situation, he's actually talking about that external aspect also. Okay, so motivation of the actor is very important. If I'm simply coming here and teaching something without any motivation or anything, it cannot be taken as a social action. Okay, and then the third condition is there should be some norms and values which need to be followed in while you're performing the action. Now we are in a social situation, so the first condition is satisfied. We have the motivation. Yes. Are we following the norms and values? Yes, right? When I speak here, even though nobody's talking, right? So because that will lead to disturbance, and we are having some norms and values which is fixed. Okay, so that we are following whatever it is. So the norms and values is perfectly followed. So that condition is also satisfied. And the fourth condition is, if it need to be a social action, there should be some investment of energy. So this is a biological aspect, right? So he's bringing all these dimensions into the definition of social action, and when he is defining the action, he's giving all these conditions which take care of all these dimensions. So any act consciously performed a social action. Now I'll always explain with respect to this class so that you can actually understand, right? We can consider it as society, right? Because whatever required for a society is there in a normal classroom also, right? The norms and values are there, individuals are there, and every thing is actually there, right? Different religion, different region, and all these people are here. So any act consciously performed is a social action, provided by it should satisfy these four conditions. Any doubt here, guys? Any confusion? Is there anything difficult so far? No, right? The definition part is over. It should be in a social situation. There should be motivation for the individual, and it should involve, or it should have some norms and values. The action should be followed by or performed in accordance with the norms and values. I should not be doing anything which is against the norms and values of this class, right? Energy, investment of energy. Do we invest energy? When I'm teaching, I'm investing energy. Even when you're listening, you are investing your energy into that. So can we say this as a perfect example of social action, right? Yes, this is a perfect example of social action. So I hope this part is very clear to all of you. and then there is no need to have any confusion here. So that's how he improved our Weber when it comes to the definition. In the definition also, in fact, Parson defines it more comprehensively. But is this what I'm more into? I'm not going to be focusing more into this when I'm writing the answer. So this is okay. This is my one paragraph only. I just give that much attention only for this part. I'm not interested in this definition or condition. When I'm writing the answer, I'll just write it. But I'm not making a big comparison or anything out of this. I don't find a big modification in this part. You have just defined it in this way. That's it. There is not much modification or anything which is going to come here. Okay. Now listen to the next part here. This is going to be the thread, and this is going to be what you need to actually write in your answer if they're asking the comparison part. Okay, drawing this diagram. So understand this, guys. You are an actor, or we are actors, and we are always goal seeking, right? When I'm teaching, I have a goal. When you're attending this class, which is also a social action, you also have a goal. Whatever is your goal, you want to become IAS or IPS or any whatever is your goal, there is a goal, right? Or when you're performing any action, it is for the satisfaction of some goal only. Without any goal, nobody is going to do any action. Yes or no? Nobody is going to do any action. Without goal, no action is possible actually. Okay, so now to achieve this goal, you have alternate means. There will be mean 1, there will be mean 2, there will be mean 3, right? So here it could be like any different ways are there, up to n ways are there. That means what is your, when you're attending sociology class, your intention is you want to score good in sociology. So what are the possible means you have? You can attend the class with person X or person Y, person Z, or person A, B, C, right? Or you can attend with me. So you have selected one person, right? Let's say you have selected this mean, M3. Okay, now I'm connecting this so that things will be more familiar to you. It will be very easy for you to understand. So to achieve the goal, you have selected a mean, right? That means this is the action that you're doing, right? Actor does an action. Actor is doing an action to achieve the goal. This action, you can do multiple actions, but what action you will do or what means you will choose depends on two things. One is your motivation, what your mind say. It is completely into you, right? What you decide, what decision you make. Right here, you might have seen the classes and you have realized, and this is good, and then you are joining the class. So this is your own motivation. Okay, so this is one dimension in which you decide that you will take this action or you will select this mean. Okay, so this is your own motivation. Which element is this? This is a micro dimension. This is what Weber also discussed. So this is a dimension which Weber also covered. Your motivation, you're doing an action. And this is what Parsons consider as motivational orientation. There are two levels of orientation. There's the first orientation. When you're performing the action, you're selecting a mean, or if you want to achieve the goal, you have to select a mean. Selecting a means means, what does that mean? You are taking an action. So you can do multiple actions to achieve the goal, but you take this action based on two aspects. One is your own motivation, and the other is what society will tell you, what your friends will tell you, what your seniors will tell you, what your family will tell you. They will tell you to join here, there, and like that, whether it is coaching or whatever it is, right? So this is what societal aspect, or I'll just write it as value aspect, or this is what Parsons mentioned as value orientation. So when you're performing any action, there are two aspects into that. One is the motivation aspect, which is internal, which is coming in inside of you. And then the value aspect, which is the external aspect, which is what actually the macro aspect of the action, which is what actually discussed by Durkheim. So here, this is macro dimension, and which is actually what discussed by Durkheim. Now, guys, whenever you're performing any action, what two elements have to be seen? One is the motivation, that is the internal aspect, and the other is the value aspect, that is the external aspect. So now, did you guys got the thread here for the answer? What is the thread? How he improved our Weber? Simply, is it in the definition? Something is done in the definition. Guys, I can give you a definition, right? And you can just add 2-3 words into that. And can we say that you have improved our me in that definition? No, right? But can I definitely say with respect to this framework that Parsons improved our Weber? Because whenever we have seen the critical analysis of Weber, what we have discussed is Weber clearly ignored or excluded the influence of society. Whenever you're performing an action, it is not only your motivation. There is an external factor which is present, whether it is family or society or peer group. There is always an external factor which is present. Not alone you can take an action. Okay, so now this is what the thread that you need to write in your answer. If the comparison is asked, even if the single question is asked, exactly the same thing you need to write. You need to compare also. It doesn't matter whether they're asking a comparison question or a simple question. Even if it is a simple social action question according to Parsons, still you need to talk about this, and you yourself have to make a comparison with Weber and also talk about Durkheim in your answer. So this has to come automatically. Whether it doesn't matter whether it is comparison which is asked or simply the question is asked. Okay, so I hope this part is clear. Now, how will I write this? See, guys, like this only. Actor is always goal seeking, and he possesses alternate means. What are they? These are the means. Means mean, what is that? It is the actions. So to achieve goal, actor can take any actions. Any action means any means you can choose. Okay, and he select a particular action or he select a particular mean based on your own motivation, the actor's own motivation, as well as the influence of society. Now, tell me, guys, if you are in a traditional society, what will be influencing you more? Is it your own motivation or the values of society? Will you be following what your mind say or what your family or society will say? If it is in a traditional society, you will definitely give importance to value orientation, right? It's a mechanical solidarity based society for Durkheim. So traditional society, which is more important is the value aspect is more important. So you might be, but that doesn't mean that individual motivation is not there. But weightage will be something like this, 80-20, value will be more and motivation will be less. But in a modern society, which is based on organic solidarity, which is a highly aspirational society, individualistic society, which aspect will be more? It is your motivation will be more. So it will be like this now, 80-20, or it could be 90-10, or it could be 70-30. This degree will vary. I'm just writing some numbers, random numbers. You don't want to write these numbers and all. I'm just telling you to explain you in the modern society, what is more? The motivation of the individual is more. It could be 90 maximum, it could be, but some level of influence of society will be there. Some will be there, but maximum will be your motivation. Okay, so this is but I don't want to explain all those things. Even in ethics also, last to last year, I think there was a question like you're going for a UPSC interview. Okay, so you saw a person who met with an accident in the road. Now, what you will do? Will you help that person or will you go for the interview? Right? So this was the question which was asked in ethics paper. Guys, what you write in ethics paper and what actually is going to happen in the practice is entirely different. Okay, so there what you write is something which I know, but what exactly is the case in a modern society? You will not even think of that person, whoever you are. Okay, don't tell that you will take care of that person. You've done all those things and you're going for the interview only. That's for sure. Okay, you are not going to leave the interview at any cost. But in ethics, you can say that I'll help that person, I'll take him to hospital, and then I'll take his family number, and then I'll inform their family, and then I'll go back to the UPSC interview, and I can explain them that these are things which has happened, and they can understand my situation, and all those things you will write in your answer. But that's not the actual case, okay? So in the modern society, what is more important is your own motivation, your aspiration, and your life. If you are not taking care of your life, nobody is going to take care of your life. It's only you who is responsible for your life, and it's only your action is responsible for your future. So in the modern society, where motivation is more important, you're not going to help that person. But in a traditional society, now this you can explain with Durkheim also. Traditional society, which language you use? You can use, if it is Durkheim, collective conscience is very, very strong in traditional society. So you will help that person. Okay, and norms and values are very strong. So it is not aspirational society. You will evaluate yourself on the basis of conformity to norms and values in a traditional society. So you help that person. But guys, again, you can justify this action also in modern society. There are mechanisms, There are ambulance service and there are many other service which is there to take care of someone who met with an accident. Forget about India. Normally, in the modern society, I'm talking about modern society. India is not a modern society. So if it is in a modern society, we are in a society which is a transitional phase. So we face dilemma whether to help that person or go with the interview. So we always face that dilemma because we are not modern, not traditional. But in a modern society, there are systems to take care of this person. So you don't want to bother about that person. In a traditional society, there are no such system. You saw that person, you have to help him. That is your response. You take it as your responsibility. Modern society, you don't take it as your responsibility because that responsibility, for that, there are systems to take care of that. Okay, so ultimately, what I want to tell you is there are two aspects when you're performing the action: motivation, individual motivation, and then the value. Motivation is the internal aspect, value is the external aspect. Motivation is the influence of individual himself. Value is the influence of society. Motivation is the micro aspect. Value is the macro aspect. Motivation is what Parsons explained in terms of Weber. Value is what Parsons explained in terms of Durkheim. That's how he incorporated both Weber's as well as Durkheim's claim in his theory of social action. And this is how he improved over Weber. Okay, now there are some ideal types also. I'm not much concerned about ideal types, guys. This is what the framework I want you to understand and you to focus on and you to explain more in your paper. Now let's look into the ideal types. Ideal types are very simple. Now, don't tell that this is again the modification, but if you want, you can write. But this is not the main case. Weber gave how many? 4. Parsons will give how many? 3. Now, it's a reduction, 4 to 3. 4 is better, right? But anyway, let's see whether it is modification or not. If you want to write it as modification, you can write it. Obviously, we'll have to write it. It's not that you should not be writing it, but focus should be on the previous part. Now, Parsons gives 3 ideal type. What are they? Instrumental action. This is the first one. And then expressive action. Just ignore the spellings. I'm not able to write with this, okay? And then the third one, moral action. Just let me check this, guys. Instrumental, expressive, yes, correct. Yeah. So these are the 3 ideal types. So what are the 4 ideal types which is given by Weber? Traditional action, and then, tell me guys, traditional action, then affective action, and then Wort rational action and Zweck rational action, right? So this is value rational action and this is end rational action. So these are the 4 ideal types given by Weber, and these are the 3 ideal types given by Parsons. Okay. Now, guys, instrumental action is where he's telling that your own motivation is very important. That means you're doing an action for your own benefit, your own motivation, which is similar to which action of Weber. That is also something which you need to write. That is the Zweck rational action of Weber. So once you write this ideal type and then you tell that this is a motivation element is more important. Motivation means Parsons give a term, evaluative component. You take this action by evaluating your situations and scenarios and everything. And how is it going to help you in your own advantage? So this evaluative component is more dominant here. And you will be taking the action based on that evaluative component while by evaluating the situation and everything. So that is done purely on the basis of your own motivation, which is similar to Zweck rational action of Weber. This is how you need to explain. And this is how you need to make the comparison. First, explain what Parsons said, and then explain similar to this what Weber discussed. What is that? Zweck rational action. Now comes the expressive action. This is very easy, right? In expressive action, the emotional aspect is more. So which action of Weber you think you can compare here? The affective action. Okay. Now 2 more left, traditional and Wort rational. What was traditional action? It was based on some beliefs. Wort rational action based on some value. So for Parsons, he says there is no need to separate these 2. Like the belief, certain action you do with belief and fulfillment of value, you can consider it as moral action. So what he did, the traditional action of Weber and the Wort rational action of Weber, he combined and he gave it as moral action. So that's it. We're done with the theory of social action. So what I did, I'll just explain once again everything that I've done today. Firstly, we have discussed any act consciously performed a social action. I'm not writing it. I hope it is clear. Let me write. Consciously performed a social action. Then 4 conditions. What are they? Social, situation, and then motivation. Guys, motivation is very important. Motivation and goal is very important for any action, especially when it comes to Parsons. Goal is very important element. And third is norms and values. And the fourth one is investment of energy. So these are the 4 conditions which has to be met for any act to become social. Any act consciously performed a social action, provided these conditions are to be met. Guys, any confusion, any questions here, any doubts so far? This is very simple, right? He defined. So you can say one, maybe if you want to make a comparison, yeah, this is how he defined more comprehensively than Weber. Simple. Okay, then when I discuss with the PDF, things will be more clear to you. And then you need to draw that diagram. That is very important. This is something which you should not miss. You can explain that actor is always goal seeking. He possesses alternate means to achieve the goal. Mean actions. So he can take different actions to achieve the goal. Right? So while taking action, there will be 2 components. What are they? One is your own motivation. The other is value of society. One is micro, the other is macro. One is Weber, the other is Durkheim. One is individuals' own influence, the other is societal influence. I hope this is clear. Okay. In a traditional society, value will be dominant. In modern society, motivation will be dominant. In societies which are in transition, like societies like India, 50-50, there will be dilemma. This dilemma is very interesting, and that I'll discuss in terms of pattern variables tomorrow. I will explain what are these dilemmas and how this is discussed by Parsons in pattern variables. Okay. So, and after that, we just discussed that this only. There are 3 ideal types, which is given by Parsons: instrumental action, expressive action, and moral action. And for this, there is some components which are given, like evaluative component, cathetic component, cognitive component, affective component. You don't want to bother into all of those. Okay. So let's get into the PDF and we'll explain more with that. So these are the topics that we need to cover in Parsons. So Parsons social action, that's exactly what we have done. Then pattern variables I'll do tomorrow. Then AGIL model, that is what we are going to do along with the theory of social system. AGIL model, and then the cybernetic hierarchy of control, and then moving equilibrium, and social change, theory of social change also. And this is what we have discussed today. This is done, social action and how he have improved over Weber. Okay, so here I'll give you some introduction, which you can write in any question of Parsons. And here I'll define social action. And there's a diagram which we have discussed. And then these are the different orientation, motivational and value orientation. And then these are the different ideal types and further. So guys, let's look into this. Parsons, a prominent American sociologist, is sometimes known to have introduced functionalism in America. His approach favored development of grand theories in the form of master analytical framework. He dealt mainly with abstractions involved in social